Good morning and welcome to the Ask Weldon Show, episode 130. Today I want to talk about sex and athletic performance, specifically esport performance. So this show's topic comes to me because I just got a question on Anchor. And the question is, well, we'll listen to it in a sec, but essentially, does sex affect my athletic performance for the positive or for the negative? And this is something that I have had to deal with on every professional team that I've worked with. Athletes come up to me and they say, hey, should I have sex before a game? Should I have sex before training? Should I have a girlfriend at all? Should I masturbate? Should I not masturbate? Like, people are super curious about this stuff, and there's a lot of random advice on the internet and anecdotal stories from pro athletes all over the spectrum. And so I thought that I would just kind of do a single question vlog here about the topic and share my thoughts and my searches. And I didn't have a lot of time to pull up all my research this morning, but I did another cursory search through Google Scholar to kind of find some of my references. And I can't find the quintessential key paper that I wanted to reference today, but I'll tell you what I remember from the findings of that paper. So before we get into it, let's go ahead and listen to the question. Remember that if you want to ask a question, which you should, that you need to do it on the Anchor app, which allows you to call it in so that I can hear you, so that the audience can hear you, so everybody can hear you. So let's listen to what Unraveled says.
Hello, Weldon. So today I wanted to bring up a little bit of a controversial topic. And I know a lot of people have different opinions on it, and I thought it'd be interesting to hear what yours is. And my question is, what do you think are the effects of sexual activity on an athlete, either on their performance or on their training? I know a lot of athletes have said that it helps to abstain from sexual activity and it makes them feel like a better performer, a better athlete. And I wanted to see what you think, if you think it's true that there are benefits to abstaining from sexual activity, or if just kind of all in our heads that it really doesn't matter. Thank you.
Okay. So the gist of there's a lot of ways to tackle this question. So the first and most interesting, like straightforward answer is, does this affect my biology, like my power output? So there have been a number of studies, like actually only a limited number of studies, that measure power output and whether or not sex affected it from the night before. And so the finding is no, that if you have a cyclometer test, there are various different methods that the studies use to measure power output, and they measured a number of different things like acceleration and speed and maximal power output and VO2 max and production of more semen even the next day. And what they found was that across the board, that if you have sex the day before, then you go in the morning and you have no impact on your power output at all. So you physically can perform the same. And that's excluding, of course, the things that go along with sex, which might be staying up late, disrupted sleep, and drinking. Those things are different. But then you're not dealing with sex, you're dealing with staying up late, disrupted sleep, and drinking. So those affect performance in their own way. Okay, so then the second question that people kind of tackle, or the second angle that people tackle this question by is, well, that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about maximal power output. I'm talking about aggression and the psychological aspects of performance. And that's much harder to measure, because how do you do a controlled study for that, with a placebo? And how do you measure victory conditions for that? Like it's really hard to measure raw competition because you don't know where the person is going to place anyway. So let's say that I want to run a study for that. So I would say, okay, we're going to go to a lab and we're going to have a bunch of races. But then that's not real competition, right? It's not like there's a competition on the line. So people want to know about like an actual game with actual results. So we would say, okay, we'll go to a track and field event, and before this, we'll ask everybody and we'll see where their placements are. But we don't really know where they were going to place in the first place. Okay, so we'll do a double we'll do a placebo. So not a placebo. You can't do placebo sex. We'll do a second round. So we ask them to not have sex, to abstain from having sex. We see if their placement increases. Well, maybe their placement increases. Anyway, it's so difficult to measure. So we have to get really specific and say, well, what if we did a psychometric? What if we did a survey and we measured your level of aggression using some sort of clinical lab test or some survey results? Well, okay, maybe people have even done that. I'm sure that in the psychology field you can find research on sex and emotion, but nobody has done it in the context of athletic performance the next morning, and certainly we don't know the interplay between aggression and success rate, although those two are very correlated, to be perfectly honest. There was one study that I did find, and this is after hours and hours of searching, because I was doing a class on this. So I basically read every single research article in the sport psychology field or the biology field that has been published in regards to high performance sport and sexual conduct before matches. And one study I found that looked at like an overall population study. So this is epistemological. And the idea was, not epistemological, what is the frickin' word? Where you have like a large population. It's used, epidemiological. A population study, and they looked at everybody who's competing in who would answer the survey, who's competing in like an Olympics or something. I'm pretty sure it was not Rio, I think it was London. And what they found was that by and large, it was the perception of your performance that was affected most by sex. So it wasn't the actual performance as far as they could tell, but the thing that they can measure the most was people's perception of their performance before and after their performance, after they had sex the night before. And for women, having sex had a much larger effect on their perception of themselves before performance, so they were more confident and they felt more aggressive. And then it had a bigger impact on their perception of themselves after the performance as well, where they felt like they had been more aggressive. Hang on, I'm uploading this to the station. They felt like they had been more aggressive and they had been more, confident. So essentially, for females, it gave like a more of a empowerment kind of sensation, and for males it didn't really have an effect in terms of the psychology of the perception of their performance, or it had a negative one. It had zero or negative, but not as much positive. And that's it. I mean, so when TSM asked me, oh hey, and I'm not going to say who on TSM, so stop spamming. When TSM asked, hey, should I have sex before the game? And this is, like I said, it's been on every team. People have asked me this. So don't, start spamming double lift. Be like, when they asked me, I said, I had to tell the truth that it doesn't really have an effect. And I know that in Europe, in particular, there have been a number of no FAP, no masturbation people, and I think that one of the junglers in the Challenger series came out and said that hey, I haven't masturbated at all, and it's like a super focus, that kind of stuff. Certainly, if you're talking about training, thirst can be distracting, right? So if we have an 8-hour training block and people are getting instant messages on their phone, from Twitter girls or something, and if you're a female team, from Twitter boys, whatever, then I think that can be very distracting for performance. So that's an issue. You can either choose to avoid it or build up perseverance to it, or take care of yourself before training, or have an active sex life so you don't have to worry about it, whatever it is. But that's kind of beside the point. The question more or less is, does the actual act of sex deplete some sort of mysterious resource for performance? And the answer scientifically is no, probably not. All evidence so far points to no. whether or not we're able to someday measure this mystical performance chemical that exists that we can't measure right now, and then somehow find out that sex affects it is another question. So that's what I wanted to address today, and that's the show. Thanks for tuning in. Okay. Before I say goodbye, YouTube, I wanted to wish you a happy new year. It's the last day of the year, 31st December. So happy 2017, happy 2018. I hope that you guys are having have really good plans for the new year, and make sure to keep in touch with me in 2018 for more exciting and regular content.